student, been watching the world through this ghetto lens. I'm only trusting my ghetto friends. You better hope they don't let us in.
What's up, everyone? It's Books&Looks. Today, I'm going to do commentary on an article that looks very interesting by The Atlantic. It's called "The Nuclear Family Was a Mistake," and I just want to talk about it because I've been thinking a lot about family, how a lot of us view family, especially in Black America, and what it takes to sustain a family, not only financially, but like emotionally, spiritually. And I just wanted to read this author's article. This is my first time reading it, so I don't really have opinions. It's just the title drew me and the illustration for the article. So I'm going to read it, and while I read it, I'm going to stop and do my commentary, and so bear with me. And so again, the name of this is called "The Nuclear Family Was a Mistake. The family structure we've held up as the cultural ideal for the past half century has been a catastrophe for many. It's time to figure out better ways to live," by David Brooks. And this was published in March 2020. The scene is one many of us have somewhere in our family history. Siblings, cousins, aunts, uncles, great aunts. The grandparents are telling the old family stories for the 37th time. Dozens of people celebrating Thanksgiving or some other holiday around a makeshift stretch of family tables. "It was the most beautiful place you've ever seen in your life," says one, remembering his first day in America. "There were lights everywhere. It was a celebration of light. I thought they were for me." The oldsters started squabbling about whose memory is better. "It was cold that day," one says about some faraway memory. "What are you talking about? It was May, late May," says another. Young children sit wide-eyed, absorbing family lore and trying to piece together the plot line of the generation. After the meal, there are piles of plates in the sink, squads of children conspiring mischievously in the basement. Groups of young parents huddle in the hallway making plans. The old men nap on couches waiting for dessert. It's the extended family in all its tangled, loving, exhausting glory. This particular family is the one depicted in Barry Levinson's 1990 film Avalon, based on his own childhood in Baltimore. 5 brothers came to America from Eastern Europe around the time of World War I and built a wallpaper business. For a while, they did everything together, like in the old country. But as the movie goes along, the extended family begins to split apart. Some members move to the suburbs for more privacy and space. One leaves for a job in a different state. The big blow-up comes over something that seems trivial but isn't. The eldest of the brothers arrives late to a Thanksgiving dinner to find that the family has begun the meal without him. "You cut the turkey without me?" he cries. "Your own flesh and blood? You cut the turkey?" The pace of life is speeding up. Convenience, privacy, and mobility are more important than family loyalty. The idea that they would eat before the brother arrived was a sign of disrespect, Levinson told me recently when I asked him about this scene. There was a real crack in the family. When you violate the protocol, the whole family structure begins to collapse. Okay, this is really interesting. So basically, from my understanding, it's saying that this man is like thinking about family through the eyes of a movie, and there's a scene where basically one of the family members shows up late and they eat without him, and in their tradition, like you don't start the meal without like everyone eating there. And I kind of find it true too, because like when I was growing up, we had a lot of family traditions, and even on TV, you used to see like everybody had to wait until the father got there or until everybody was at the table before anyone could eat. And people used to eat together at the table in general, but now it seems like a lot of times people be in different rooms or on like various devices distracted from just bonding time. And so I can see how someone in this scenario would be upset about, coming home for the holidays. You don't know what that person had to go through to get to the family, especially if it's like bad weather or just the sacrifices people do with traveling. I feel like a lot of people think just because you can travel, like maybe you're a responsible family member or you're someone who always travels, people like rely on you. Like they put the whole burden of traveling on you to just be with everybody else. Like it's easy. And it's not easy a lot of times to travel, especially during that time. There's so many factors that come into play. So imagine somebody like wanting to see their family and they having this tradition of everybody sitting and eating together, and they get there and they're like, "Damn, like y'all just ate like I ain't matter." So I can kind of understand someone would feel like that. But I'm going to continue this article. And again, I like how they said to them they felt like the family structure collapsed, because again, sometimes you break traditions, or especially like the family isn't as close as they used to be, it can impact the family like on the long term. As the years go by in the movie, Extended family plays a smaller and smaller role. The 1960s, there's no extended family at Thanksgiving. It's just a younger father and mother, their son and daughter, eating turkey off trays in front of the television. Y'all see what I mean? So it's like a lot of times traditions kept family closer, etc. They're saying as time went on, it just became like maybe the immediate family or the new family started, and people weren't even eating real food, quote unquote. Like they just eating turkeys off trays in front of TV. And it's kind of giving me Matilda vibes. But anyway, in the final scene, the main character is living alone in a nursing home, wondering what happened. In the end, you spend everything you've ever saved, or everything you've ever owned, just to exist in a place like this. And this is so sad because I feel like there was a time where a lot of black people, I'm not saying that all black people feel need to put their family away, and sometimes people have no choice. I'm just saying in general, a lot of people would take on their family member. Like even if you like look back at the movie Soul Food, you had that man who barely came out the house, but people still made sure he had a plate to eat. You know what I'm saying? But nowadays, you can understand somebody like doing so much for their family, and then they not only putting you away in like a nursing home, but not checking on you. And it's just like, aside from that, like family is so important. And I don't know if y'all know about like nursing home businesses, but a lot of times it's very expensive to live there. A lot of people sell like everything they have because like they need somebody to care for them. So I do understand how that can be saddening. Let me continue. My childhood, Levinson told me, gather around the grandparents and they would tell the family stories. My individuals sit around the TV watching other family stories. The main theme of Avalon, he said, is decentralization of the family. That has continued even further today. Once families at least gathered around the television, not each person has their own screen. Again, that's true. That goes like, even though like a lot of people be like, oh, boomers, they always complaining about phones and tablets. Think again, they lived in a time where people relied on human interactions, and they do see how like it's changed or how people have become zombies. I'm not even a boomer. I'm not a boomer. Like I'm a millennial, and I lived in a time where we were like getting introduced to TVs and computers. Like I remember being like in kindergarten, seeing this huge computer and having to learn how to like how it worked. And by the time I got like to high school, I saw social media, how social media came and like much changed how a lot of us interacted with each other. A lot of times we would go and check on somebody or pick up the phone and call them. Now, like, learn a lot about people's updates through like a Facebook status or some type of like social media status. So, continue. This is a story of our times, the story of the family. Once a dense cluster of many siblings and extended kin, fragmenting into even smaller and more fragile forms. Initial result of that fragmentation, the nuclear family. It seems so bad. Then, because the nuclear family is so brittle, fragmentation continued. Many sectors of society, nuclear families fragmented into single-parent families, exotic families, no families. So, we just checked, but I think I know the nuclear family is usually like two-parent home, mother, father, and children. And whereas extended family could be like, as people consider the village. It'd be like your friends, how people be like, that's my cousin, but it really ain't your cousin by blood. Y'all were so close to each other that you call people your cousin. I don't even hear people today really referring to people as their cousin like I did growing up. You had so many cousins, and sometimes you didn't even have to say it. Like it was understood. They were always like around the family. So I understand where he's coming from. And I actually saw this critique or else how like a lot of people, how like immigrants or like foreigners, it's like a bunch of people living in a house or resources, and how usually people are better off. Like in America, a lot of times people like do everything alone, or it's like individualistic. And some people would say like that's why some people do suffer from like depression, not just financial traits, because you always feel like you're alone or you don't have anybody. In fact, I say this, there's nothing wrong with having groups or interest groups. When people have to solely rely on like finding a friend like off the internet, I think that's really sad. And it just goes to show how like we become so distant from each other. Let me continue this. Is this the story of our times, story of the family? It's a dense cluster of many siblings and I read that already. Then it says, I want to summarize the changes in family structure over the past century. The truest thing to see is this. It made life freer for individuals and more unstable for families. It made life better for adults, worse for children. There's some deep stuff like, it's nothing wrong with somebody choosing to like have kids or get married or choosing to do that. But if you like look at the grand scheme of things, there was a time where people like, oh, a family is enjoyable and people would find meaning behind it. Now a lot of people, well, it's better to be single, which to me is nothing wrong with having an option. When people are so afraid to bring children into this world, or a lot of times on pets rather than human beings. It makes you think like what's going on with the human condition. And what took to me even more so, it says when we made life better for adults but worse for children. A lot of people have so much like trauma that they haven't worked out and that they don't have any intention to work out or they don't even know exists. So adults, they can sometimes manage the crap. A lot of times if you have children, they have to live with it. Not even just that, like you have children living amongst people who say they hate children, don't want to have anything to do with children. And just think how alarming that could be, like to a child's mind. And so it's like a lot of times, again, children grow up carrying that resentment themselves as a burden, and a lot of times they project it onto children, or they don't even value themselves as adults. So we do need to be really careful on how we speak to each other. As we move from big, interconnected, and extended families, help protect the most vulnerable people in society, the shocks of life, smaller, detached nuclear families, married couple, and their children. Gives the most privileged people in society room to maximize their talents, expand their options. Shift from bigger and interconnected extended families to smaller, detached nuclear families ultimately led to a familial system that liberates the rich and ravages the working class and the poor. Yeah, I think that's true. And don't get me wrong, there are a lot of people who are also single and struggle. A lot of people also will say, well, I'd rather struggle as a single person than a person with family. But the bigger scheme of all of this is because life is really hard, and the system in general, it's not meant for working class people. So imagine have a family of five or however you having um, to split resources, and then even if you apply for some resources don't always get it. So it's just like really hard in life. Again, those who sometimes benefit from it aren't just generally single people, but people who create the systems, who are often rich, who know. Sometimes I do feel like people understand how families do benefit, like especially people of color. They do attack the family. That's just what I believe, and for various reasons. But again, this just shows in general how technology, in a sense, has hurt us, and how like just not keeping true to traditions has hurt us. This article is actually longer, and if you guys want me to continue it or no, take a different spin on it, let me know below. Let me know if you think it's some truth to it or if it's not some truth to it. Thank you so much for listening to Books and Looks TV. I'll see you guys next time.